Welcome to another Raivision Dialogues, and second time within a couple of weeks, I'm going to have a conversation with my guest, Joe Thomas. First, Joe, welcome to Raivision Dialogues.
Thank you, Satish. It's a pleasure.
Yes. These days, since the Olympics, the last day of games, an Indian young man, Neeraj Chopra, won the Olympics gold medal in javelin. There has been a lot of interest in him, who he is. Prior to that, most of us didn't know who he is. And I understand that you have been doing some research on him. And like a lot of people, a lot of my audience, I would also like to know more about him. So it's over to you, Joe. Tell us a bit more about this young person who is getting to be very, very popular, not only in India, but in the Indian diaspora as well.
Thank you, Dr. Satish. Yes, I certainly am a sports buff or sports fan because sports is in my DNA. I've been playing hockey in school, cricket in the university, and badminton during my working career, which I continue to play. Now, with regard to this young man, Neeraj Chopra, first of all, hats off to him. I salute him on behalf of all the people of Indian origin in Australia, because I was for some time the president of GoPio. So I have some kind of a representational role. So we salute him, Neeraj Chopra, you've done wonderful. I mean, for me, it was something which I really always wanted to experience, the Sydney Olympics, which will come later. But let me go back to Neeraj Chopra. From what I have done, research on him was that Neeraj Chopra comes from a village in Haryana, in Panipat, where the famous battle was fought a few centuries ago with Rana Sanga and the Mughals. And he comes from a family of farmers. His father is, I understand, a tailor, and they are a joint family with very little means. And he has struggled to be a sportsman. However, he was lucky to be sort of identified by the right people at the right time. And the screen is gone anyway at the right time. And he was given a job in the army. And I believe it was thanks to General V.K. Singh, who is now a minister in the current BJP government. So
can I just interrupt you and take you back a bit to his childhood? I'm told that he was not a skinny boy, and he, like I was, a bit. I had a bit of weight when I was young, and he was a large young boy, and it is father who used to force him to go to exercise. So let's start from there. And this was his journey. Again, I don't know how much you know about that.
Yeah. I did skip that portion. Okay, but I understand that he was the eldest of the 4 children, and he was a roly-poly. That means he was quite heavy. And his parents and grandparents were worried that if he remains fat, then he may not grow tall. And they were very particular about that. So they forced him to go to a gym and to make sure that he loses weight and in turn gains height, which was something I never knew before, that it's possible to do so, because I myself would have tried it. Anyway, the other thing about his childhood was that he was quite an active child. But one thing that came out from my research about him is that in his classroom, he was not a very mischievous or naughty boy, but he was always fond of making paper aeroplanes, because I am from the aircraft industry, so that caught my attention. So he used to make paper aeroplanes, and he was able to pinpoint and hit his enemies, in the classroom, 100 out of 100, which was probably an earlier sign that this person has got some special talent between his head-to-hand coordination with the eye. Because, you require that kind of a coordination in sports. I mean, he may probably not be able to play soccer, but certainly, somebody did tell him that he could do javelin. So anyway, from there, he finished probably his schooling, and then he got into the army, and the army has got extremely good facilities to encourage sportsmen, because even otherwise, all the army people are forced to do certain exercises to remain fit to fight the war. So he is currently with the Rajput regiment, which is probably one of the most decorated wing of the Indian Army, who have done wonderful protection of the country during the 61, 65, 71 war. And I am very fond of the Rajput regiment because they also use some of the helicopters which were produced under the Indian aerospace industry where I used to work. So it's the army helped him out, and then the sports authorities, including the Indian Olympic Association, etc., got into the act of giving the right training at the right time at the right place. And what I understand is that in the last 6 months, he was continuously based in Germany and training, which is never heard of because, I remember in the year 2000, that's not far away, for the Sydney Olympics, the Indian hockey team wanted to acclimatize in Australia, and the government could not afford to pay. They were supposed to be a gold medalist. So the Indian Sikh community in Brisbane and Queensland invited them, and they hosted them for nearly 6 weeks so that they get acclimatized. So, I mean, there was always the support from the government and the authorities, which enabled him to perfect his skills and obviously, reap the harvest.
I understand that he nearly missed out on the Olympic because he was hurt for a while, and it took him about more than a year to get better, and they had to get a German coach to coach him back, and that was done in South Africa. I don't know. I just came across that information. Can you throw a bit of light on that?
What I understand is that he suffered an injury in 2019. Whether it was during practice or whether it was during some other activity, I couldn't get the details. But he had a medical procedure on his shoulder and the wrist of the right hand, which is the most critical part of the body to do a javelin throw. And if the Olympic was held in 2020 as per schedule, most probably he did not have enough time to recover and then practice and then get back to the peak of his form. So in a way, the postponement of Tokyo Olympic has come as a blessing in disguise. And I mean, he was given a German coach, which was funded by the Sports Authority of India. And I understand that itself was the cost of about rupees 6 crores. Is a substantial amount of money. And I'm not sure whether he was training in South Africa or in Germany, because the world javelin throw current record holder is a German. So it is my guess that the Germans have got all the inner secrets. This reminds me of Prakash Padukone, who, when he became the national champion at the age of 18, his father somehow managed to send him to Indonesia. So that because they were the world champion, and the Indonesians never knew about this kid, and they later regretted that they allowed him to come and then get the skill. And he went on to beat Lee Swee King of Indonesia in the world championship 2 years later. And the only comment that came from Indonesia was that we made a mistake of allowing him to come and train.
Yeah, it happens from time to time. A little anecdote that As a young boy, he used to go to a stadium, sports stadium, near Panipat, and he used to sit around watching other javelin throwers, and then when they were resting, he picked up one of the javelin, and he threw the javelin, and then somebody shouted at him, and he started to walk away. But then somebody called him back, and apparently his first throw of the javelin was 40 meters. And the person who called him back was a coach at the stadium, and that's how his journey started. Yeah, so it's like sliding doors. One little incident in life takes you in one direction, and eventually, he became a gold medal winner at the Olympics. So there's a lesson for everybody. If you are given a chance, and we are thankful to that. I forgot this coach's name. That he spotted the talent. Apparently, he threw, as a young boy, javelin further than the people, the athletes who were throwing javelin at the stadium.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, and then before he qualified for Olympics, in fact, he qualified in South Africa. He had won multiple gold medals at the junior level and youth level. Have you come across that information?
As far as I know, I mean, he's just 20 years old, 23 years old. And going backward, I understand that he won the Asian Championship, which is a sports activity of the countries in Asia. He won the Commonwealth Championship, which is the Commonwealth countries around the world. And he was also the World Masters Championship I think, South Africa. So he more or less had won the 3 major tournaments prior to this, going backward for the last 4 years. Now, the whole question is, he's young, he is only 23, and the postponement of 1 year has worked in his favor. And that also will probably work in his favor, because Paris Olympics, which the next one, is only 3 years from now.
Yeah.
And what I understand, one of the interviews he has given is that he threw 86.5 meters to win the gold medal in Tokyo, and he is targeting 90 meters, and he is quite capable of doing it, because all his health and physical conditions probably will only peak around between 25 to 30 age, because that's the age, as a sportsman, I know that you are at your peak. Once you are over 30, the decline starts. That's just because of the aging process.
And also I noticed from the pictures and videos that is quite trim, a bit skinny, sort of. When you look at other competitors in javelin, they are mostly more stockier built, but Neeraj is quite slim, and yes, that's what I noticed. But on a lighter note, this win has made me aware of a term which I have probably never heard before, which is bhalla, and that goes back to about those Mahabharata times, when they used to use bhalla apparently as weapons. And it so happens that Neeraj Chopra is from Haryana, where the Kurukshetra took place. Can you explain a bit more about what bhalla is and what was the role?
I think that the classic what do you call, way. This is called in North Indian Hindi is bhala,
Hala,
B-H-A-L-A.
okay.
Yes, it's bhala. So bhala, bhala was the earliest weapon human beings really invented. So if you go back to the Australian Aborigines, they used to take a wood and sharpen the tip, and then they used to fight the animals or poke the fish. And so the bhala is a weapon for self-defense, and in turn, used during the wars as the very first weapon. Even the dagger or the talwar came later, because basically the earliest balas were wood with some kind of a stone ground with a sharp pointed thing fixed at the tip. So from there it became an all metallic thing, and from there it all became a carbon fiber composite thing, like anything. And a javelin, which is a bala today, is costed around $3,000, or about in terms of Indian rupees, I think it's about 6 lakhs or something like that. And Neeraj and his family could not afford it, so he was for a very long time using the makeshift things, which were affordable in one of those, Kawadi markets. But then the whole issue was, in a way, it was good, because I can say from my own experiences that, when I was playing badminton, it was a wooden racket. Then we had a wooden racket with a steel shaft. Then we had the entire steel. And now we have got the composite. So every time the technology changed, my game more or less remained the same, but I got a superior racket and my game improved. So in a way, for Neeraj Chopra, I think that his inability to use the right equipment from day one would have worked in his favor, because if he was throwing, a makeshift thing, which was not of the right weight or the right shape, etc., etc., and if he was able to achieve the distances, then he could as well do much better with the right one, because they are aerodynamically and balance-wise and everything was perfectly made. And obviously, he got them definitely, say, once the authorities started funding him, because the first thing they would give him is the proper equipment. So yes, and the bhala, of course, was used by in Mahabharata by the Kauravas and Pandavas for the fight, which was in Kurukshetra. And obviously, each side will be led by their leader. On one side, it was Duryodhan and all his brothers, in an elephant. And on the other side, it was Arjuna with Lord Krishna, who was giving him the famous advice. And then they all have mostly a bow and arrow at that time. But the ordinary soldiers, thousands of them each side, they would always have the bhala to fight. Subsequently, it became, a shield and dagger, etc. So yes, it was more or less history being repeated from Panipat, wherein Rana Sanga fought a great war and battle and left his name in the histories. And today, Neeraj has done it on the sports field. And surprisingly, he outsmarted a Pakistani who is 1.5 times bigger than him in size. I have just seen the picture of the two. And with simple common sense says that with that size, the Pakistanis should have thrown over 100 meters. If Neeraj can do 85 meters, but then that's what it is. I mean, sports is just not, one aspect. It is a totality.
It's not just brawn, it's brain as well. I think techniques and things like that. And talking about aero, Joe, I personally expected Indian archers do better, but they did not. But on the other hand, 3 other men and 3 women also won medals, silver and bronze medals. So we pay our respect to them as well. We salute them as well. And whilst on this topic, our Australian team has done wonderfully well. We expected them to win quite a few gold and other medals, which they have done. I think they are stood at the 5th position in the overall medal tally. And I must say that our Fijian rugby team, both male and female, did very well. The male sevens team won the gold, and the women's sevens team won a bronze medal. And before I ask you the final question, I would say that as far as I'm concerned, anybody who reaches Olympic level entry, they warrant our salute. And I, in fact, salute all the sports people around the world for coming out and going out and taking on the sports. You and I do that quite often. We'll be talking about that future episodes, how sports help us to keep healthy and is good for health well-being. And before we end, Joe, do you want to say anything more about Olympics generally?
Yeah, I just wanted to, before the final question, there are a few things I would like to say. The first thing is that for me, Neeraj Chopra winning a gold medal in a track and field event, it was something which I never thought that would happen in my lifetime. As a kid, I was glued to the radio when Milkha Singh ran the 100 meters in Rome. And I was told that he missed by a whiskers to get the bronze medal. Then as a middle-aged man, I watched P.T. Usha run the Los Angeles race. And again, it was missing the bronze medal. And then when I was doing my voluntary role as event manager for badminton for Sydney Olympics, I really so much wished that the Indian national anthem is played so that I can stand up and then feel proud of being of my heritage. It could not happen. So I can very clearly sort of feel the difference when Neeraj Chopra won the gold medal and the Indian national anthem was played. But then something really remarkable I noticed, and that was he took the flag of India like any athlete, wrapped around himself and went around greeting and taking the felicitation of the crowd. Once that was over, as a soldier, he went back to his seat. He folded the tricolor flag of India and then handed it over to authorities with the total respect. This is something which has not been done by any athletes from any country in the world in any of the Olympics. Hats off to Neeraj Chopra. You have certainly made India proud and you gave the due respect to the Indian tricolor. Neeraj Chopra is young. He is extremely good looking. He has already been so far given over 11 crores by various organizations, and money will pour in. And he is humble and modest, and he has got a great future. I only hope that he remains with the army and remains with javelin and not get distracted by Bollywood, because that's what's one of the greatest problems in India, is that if any single girl wins the Miss World competition, they all keep saying will never become an actress, but then invariably become a Bollywood star. Mm-hmm. And I know it's two of them from Bangalore. One of them was the daughter of somebody who worked under me. And I have known the family for years together. So as far as I am concerned, yes, this is a great experience. And for me, I mean, I can say that one of the greatest leftover aspirations as a sportsman was that the Indian national anthem should be played. I also wished that the great Milkha Singh was alive today. He only passed away just only a couple of months ago. And that would have been the most appropriate thing to have been remember today. But then Neeraj Chopra has done the needful. He has dedicated his gold medal to late Milkha Singh. So, well, that's all I would say. At this stage,
Can
I
I
can
just
say.
add, Joe, that I forgot to mention that you were an events manager at the Sydney Olympics. And so you have seen Olympics at very close quarters. In that capacity, your final thoughts on the Olympics just concluded in Tokyo. Any particular takeaway for you?
I presume this is the last question.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. In that case, I would like to say that the Sydney Olympics was in the year 2000, which was with 28 events, and I was the event manager for badminton because of my experience in playing badminton, and then being able to be also a qualified referee, umpire, and also being able to operate the RSM system on the electronic media. And for me, it was a question of my new identity as an Australian citizen from 1990. And I totally got myself with the achievements of Australia, and when the Australians did extremely well in the 2000 Sydney Olympics. However, there is one particular Australian who probably has not been recognized or has not been really given the due importance, and that's what I would like to say. It's a gentleman called Mr. Graham Hoy, H-O-Y, Hoy. He is an equestrian competitor, which is actually basically riding a horse and doing certain obstacles. This is the only event in the Olympic Games in which there is no sex grouping. That means there's no men's and women's event. I mean, anybody can compete, and they are all on equal footing. So, I mean, say a country can send 2 men and 1 woman, another country can send 3 women, and they are still all counted the same. Mr. Graham Hoy has been participating for the last 37 years in Olympic Games, last 8 Olympic Games, including Tokyo. He is today 62 years old, and he has won 8 medals in 8 Olympic Games. Wow. I mean, at the age of 62, a lot of people probably, say goodbye to sports. But then somebody asked him after the award ceremony, Mr. Hoy, what is your future plan? So he said, I plan to compete in the 2032 Brisbane Olympic Games. I have no doubt that he will not only compete the next 3 Olympics, but will also win 3 more medals. And at that time, he will be age of 73. It's been an inspiration for me because I am now 74. And if Mr. Hoy can participate and win gold medal, I know that I can also keep myself fit and have a reasonable span of life, which is really important these days with the whole COVID transformed world. So thank you, Mr. Hoy. And we, like in India, we say Bharat Mata Ki Jai when Neeraj Chopra wins. So in Australia, we always say Aussie, Aussie, oi, oi, oi. That is O-U-I, O-U-I. Aussie, Aussie, oi, oi, oi. It has been now changed to Aussie, 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 hoi, hoi, hoi. That's H-O-Y, H-O-Y, H-O-Y. I think that this is the correct change, like the national anthem of Australia changed a few decades ago. Thank you, Dr. Satish.
Joe, Mr. Hoy is your inspiration, and in many ways, you are my inspiration as far as being an athlete is concerned. I used to play badminton with you, but I could not cope. You are far more advanced than I am, but we do dabble in tennis. And I always take inspiration from you. And I just hope that, when I reach your age, I'm still playing tennis as well as you do. You play badminton at a very high level still. I hope you keep on playing for another 10 years. and
Thank
keep
you.
on enjoying it. We'll talk about all this again soon, about how you keep so healthy and so active.
Thank you.
So for today, thank you for participating in Raivision Dialogues. Is goodbye from me.
Thank you.